Welcome to Deep Thought. Don't go back into the mental prison. Now, I talked about like being in prison within your own mind and then freeing your mind. But you know what? Sometimes people will go right back in. And I'm going to tell you why. Like people know that famous movie, The Matrix. That's where the term the red pill and blue pill came from, right? And there was a character in the movie, Cypher. He had been red pilled and, outside of the Matrix, but he didn't like it. He didn't like it. He didn't like what he had to eat. He didn't like his life there. He wanted to go back in the Matrix. He knew it was an illusion, and he wanted to go back in. Right? I'm going to say this. Once you free your mind, don't go back into your mental prison. Because I'm going to tell you, here's the issue with it. Sometimes we in our mental prisons, we'll be in our mental prisons all of our lives until we consciously recognize it and free ourselves from it. And, we can do the work to free ourselves from it, but I'm going to tell you what. And I'm just going to be real with it. You can free yourself and you might have some issues with what's happening outside of that prison. Because think about it. You were in your mental prison all your life, right? But while you were in that prison, you were in there with some other prisoners. Because they were supporting that prison. Some of the you had the prisoners, you had the guards. The other prisoners could be family members, friends, associates, people in your neighborhood, co-workers. Because they support in whatever your personality that you're publicly showing, they're supporting it. They like you for it. So you might want to keep that. You might say, you know what? You might even get love, happiness, or what you think to be happiness, sex, pleasure. You might get some fun, all in that prison, right? And then you got the guards, You used to the guards. You used to authority figures. You listen to them. You believe what they say. You used to them. And it makes your life comfortable. There's a lot of people in that mental prison, but they comfort. They got a good commissary. They got a TV. You got some people like that. They might even find a way to run the prison. You got some people, when they get in prison, they prefer it there. Even in the real world. There's a lot of people. I've worked in the criminal justice system. There's a lot of people, once they're in that prison, they find a way to run stuff. Believe it or not, they find a way to run stuff. You got some guys in some of these prisons. You got some guys like in the Baltimore area. There was a big story years ago about this prisoner in there who impregnated like 4 women, 4 security guards, female security guards. So, and he was running stuff. So you get some guys in there, you get some guys that get in that prison and they can run stuff. And on a deep level, they don't want to leave. Because once they get out in the free world, they don't have that same power. Seriously. So that can be the same thing with your mental prison. You're in a place where it's enjoyable and everything. Right? So, okay. But you realize there's still some issues. There's still a prison. So, okay, you listen to Uncle Rom. You say, hey, I'm going to free my mind. All right, you actually free your mind, you out of it. You're going to have a different perspective. And that different perspective can be hard because then you start seeing stuff differently. Like, remember I said, while you in that prison, you got like the friends, family, and everything. You escape that prison, you might be like, you know what, that person's dysfunctional as hell. You might not want to hang out with those friends the same way. You might move beyond them. You might not want to be around your family members because you might be like, you know what? They were dysfunctional ass people who were hurting me, right? So it's like you start seeing stuff. But see, one of the things, and for the bad stuff that you see and you escape from, yeah, you're happy about, but then you miss some other stuff. You're like, well, wait a minute. When I was in that prison, I got to go out more. I had more friends. I had more access to sex. Let me use that example. You get some guys who might be in a mental prison and they having sex with all these women and stuff and crazy. And, they get that good feeling, but then they eventually realize they in a prison, they escape. But all of a sudden, the sex ain't the same. Because the women, at least for the moment, the women the guy might be dealing with might have loved his prison self, because his prison self might have been that party guy who let the women do what they want, or constantly satisfying them, even though they weren't really returning the favor. So it's like all of a sudden he ain't at that point. He don't want to satisfy the women, at least mentally, not necessarily sexually, but cater to their prison, or he might, they might not like, well, you're more intelligent now. They might not like it. All of a sudden, it's like, wait a minute, you ain't getting the sex like you used to. Or, you might not be able to deal with a job. Say your prison kept you working on a corporate job that really you didn't like. All of a sudden, you're freed and you want to do something else. You might not make as much money. I've actually known a few people who've actually left corporate America to do something different. I've known a couple to do something different because it was almost a prison for them. But then they ain't making as much money, and the first thing they think is, you know what, maybe I need to go back to it. All of a sudden you think, wow, I need to go back to it. I was eating better. I was doing better. I was getting more attention from the opposite sex. All right? So all of a sudden you're like, wow. And then it's like, yeah, you freed yourself, but then subconsciously you start doing some stuff to put you back into that prison. It's like when you get that person, like I use the example of somebody who might be the top dog in a prison. There are actually people, like I say, I know this from working in the criminal justice system. There are actually guys who you put them out for, they can actually leave prison, get parole, put them out. And they will go out and do something they know will land them right back there. They will consciously do stuff that will put them right back there. Not even subconsciously, just consciously do stuff. Because then they back in a position of power. So the thing is, you don't want to go back into that prison. Like, I'm going to tell you what, it's going to be tough when you come out at first. I'm just going to be real. It's just going to be tough when you come out at first. It's not going to be an easy thing at all. You might have a dip in money. You might not eat as well. You might not get the same attention from the opposite sex that you once did. But you have to stick with it. If you stick with it, you keep growing. Eventually, you will have joy on a different type of job. You will have joy in a different type of mate, because then they'll be dealing with your true self, not the prisoner, but the free self. Very important, okay? Very important. Once you get out, you gotta stay out. You don't want to be reinserted back into the matrix. You don't want to be a cipher. So that's all I got for now, y'all. I want y'all to think on everything I talked about this week. Peace and blessings.